Yo, what's up guys, it's me, Super Booglet, coming at you live from the inside of this cardboard box. Now you may be wondering, Super Booglet, where's your house? Why are you so broke? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain. So ever since I made my first Pizza Tower plushie video, I kinda became obsessed with collecting these strange little creatures. I was originally planning to make a short follow-up video reviewing some more bootlegs along with the 2 new official plushies, but one thing led to another and I've now added over a dozen different Pizza Tower plushies to my collection. These plushies range from absolute perfection to literal garbage, and in this video I'm gonna review and rate all of them on a scale of 1 to 10. Before we begin though, I spent a frankly irresponsible amount of money just so I can make this video, so I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. The more subscribers I have, the easier it is to convince myself that going into debt over a set of Pizza Tower plushies is a good idea, so by subscribing you're directly contributing to the creation of this epic content. Anyways, we got a lot of plushies to go over this time, so let's just get straight into it. As I mentioned in the intro, Torta Pizza released 2 more official plushies in addition to their Peppino plush, and the first of these plushies is none other than the Noise. Now if you watched my last video, you would know that my attempts to obtain a Noise plushie before were unsuccessful to say the least. Thankfully, Fangamer really pulled through and created an absolute banger. The design of this plushie is immaculate, being practically a 1-to-1 recreation of the Noise's in-game appearance. Starting from the top, his head is made in a slightly different way from the Peppino plush, giving it a flatter shape that more closely resembles the original design. Moving down, the face is absolutely spot on, with the Noise's goofy wide-mouth grin being captured perfectly. I especially like how they made the mouth have depth as opposed to many of the bootlegs which just made it a flat plane of fabric. The cape is just a small layer of fabric that's tied around his shoulders, and the rest of his body is recreated faithfully in terms of scale and design. They even include the little patch on the back of his suit, which is visible whenever he shakes his ass at Peppino during his boss fight. All of these aspects contribute to a level of accuracy not often seen in plushies of video game characters, and I definitely appreciate that. However, probably my favorite aspect of this plushie is how well it fits with the official Peppino plushie. Just seeing these guys next to each other fills me with so much happiness, and I don't even know why. Everything from the difference in height, their silly little smiles, and even their matching sitting positions just make these plushies a perfect pair. Considering these 2 plushies were released around 3 years apart from each other, I'm very impressed at the consistency in both their designs and style. Overall, the official Noise plushie is another example of an ideal Pizza Tower plushie, so it gets an easy 10 out of 10. The second and most recent official Pizza Tower plushie so far is none other than the stupid rat. Now you guys have to understand that when I found out this plush was actually being made, I freaked out. I've gone on record saying that the stupid rat was literally the perfect enemy to turn into a plushie, even going so far as to buy an unofficial stupid rat plush just to fill the void. So when Fangamer announced the release of an actual official stupid rat plushie, I was over the moon. One quick order later and I gotta say this is by far my favorite official plushie. The design is literally perfect, being super cute while also looking pretty much spot on to the original sprite when viewed from the front. The rat is decently large, being taller than both of the other official plushies, and its shape makes it perfect to beat the shit out of. I mean, hug and protect. I seriously can't overstate how goofy this little guy looks. No matter what angle you view it at, this plush will look like the stupidest rat you've ever seen, and that is just wonderful. I've had this plushie sitting on my desk for the past month while working on this video, and its silly little stare never fails to make me smile. One of my favorite aspects of the plushie are its tiny arms and legs, which are attached in the exact sitting position as seen in the game. However, I did run into a slight problem with these limbs in particular. While the rat's legs are fully sewn on, the arms are only connected to its body with one singular thread. I found this out the hard way when I was attempting to fit the rat into my backpack on a trip, only for its little hand to snap off. Thankfully, after a mild heart attack, I managed to contact Fangamer support and get a full refund for the incident, but I did end up having to get my mom to sew the hand back on so I could record this video on time. Just take this as a reminder to be careful with your rat friend should you decide to purchase one. Aside from that tiny issue, this plushie is basically flawless. I see this as a quintessential Pizza Tower plushie and highly recommend it to any fellow rat enjoyers out there. Another easy 10 out of 10. Alright, so originally after reviewing the official plushies, I was just gonna transition into reviewing more bootlegs. However, while researching bootlegs for the video, I stumbled upon this gigantic Pizzard plush plushie being sold on Etsy. Upon closer inspection, this was actually a plushie of Dougie Jones, a specific Pizzard whose first and last appearance was in the Singular Pizza Tower comic. The plushie seemed to have been modeled after this unused sprite, even including the bowl of nachos, which I thought was hilarious. The price wasn't cheap, with the plushie costing nearly $100, but eventually my curiosity got the better of me, and a couple days later the plushie arrived on my doorstep. This plushie is actually kinda crazy in terms of its quality. For such a niche character, you would expect the quality to be on par with one of the bootlegs, but this plushie blew every single one of my expectations out of the water in that regard. The size of this plushie is nuts, completely towering over every other plushie I have. The build quality is absolutely superb, rivaling and even surpassing some of the official plushies thanks to the use of soft fabrics and thick stuffing that really gives the plushie some weight. The design of the plushie is also exquisite, with the noodly arms and bulging eyes giving it an almost Muppet-like appearance. My favorite aspect of this plush is probably the robes, as they loosely fit around the body, giving the plushie a real sense of depth and physicality. Of course, we can't review the Dougie Jones plushie without also reviewing the bowl of nachos that he came with. This thing is surprisingly detailed despite basically just being a visual gag. Each individual nacho has been carefully constructed, and they all rest on top of a round green bowl. The more I look at this thing, the more I'm convinced it was more difficult to create than the actual Pizzard. Truly a work of art. The one problem I really have with this set of plushies is a relatively steep price point, which although justified is likely to turn off some potential buyers. Still, if you have the money, I'd definitely recommend this one to all the Dougie Jones fans out there. A solid 9 out of 10. After thoroughly enjoying my Dougie Jones plushie, I went back to the Etsy store to find out if they were selling any other Pizza Tower plushies. I found a couple including the Noise and Noisette, but something else caught my attention. Turns out all of the store's plushies were custom made to the customer's request. This got me thinking, were there any other Pizza Tower characters that I really wanted plushies of? My mind of course immediately jumped to the Toppins, as these guys had somehow not even gotten bootlegs made of them despite being perfect plushie material. At that point I knew what I had to do, so I placed a custom order for 5 plushies, one for each Toppin, and after around $200 and a month of waiting, I had finally obtained what could quite possibly be the best Pizza Tower plushies in existence. As a set, these guys are absolutely incredible. They all share the same amount of polish as the Dougie Jones plushie, already putting them up to official quality. They also have the correct proportions, which makes them perfect for displaying as a group. Looking at each individual plushie is equally impressive, as they all nailed the design of their respective Toppin in a way that I just can't get enough of. I could talk about these things all day, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna review each individual Toppin plush in a quick lightning round. First up, we got the Mushroom Toppin. This little guy is very cute, with a pair of dopey looking eyes and some floppy legs that allow him to either sit or stand with some assistance. The shape of this plushie is absolutely perfect, having a bulbous head combined with a plump round body. The top of its head is even sewn in a very similar way to the chef hat on the official Peppino plush, which adds another layer of authenticity. Overall, a great start to the set. Next up is the Cheese Toppin. This plushie is definitely one of the simpler designs, literally being a cube with eyes, but it doesn't really matter because it's still absolutely adorable. I really appreciate the extra effort put into sewing these cheese holes on either side of the plushie, as well as the extra soft squishmallow-like fabric used on this plushie in particular. Nothing more to say about this one, it just makes me happy. The Tomato Toppin is probably the goofiest looking one, and it translates perfectly into its plushie form. From the big bulbous nose to the droopy eyes to the silly green shoes, I just love this guy's design. The shape of the plushie is rounded, allowing him to roll just like in the game, although it's a bit more scuffed in practice. This guy is a very silly, funny little goober. I love him. This is a sausage plush, and I'm actually pretty impressed with this one. It's surprisingly hard to design plushies with weird shapes like this one, and for what it's worth, this is pretty much spot on. It's got a slight curve in the middle to really sell the floppy sausage look, and the tied end at the top really completes the silhouette. I also love how the grumpy stare of the sausage is fully captured thanks to this magnificent unibrow. This was definitely a tricky one, but I think it turned out great. Finally, we have the Pineapple Toppin. Out of all of the Toppins, this dude's definitely the coolest one, with his cool shoes and even cooler shades. Similarly to in-game, this plushie is also the tallest of the set, both while standing and sitting, further cementing his status as the Chad of the group. I think this one's probably my favorite one out of all of these. It looks practically identical to in the game, and the Pineapple Toppin was already my favorite one, so this is the perfect combination. Definitely a great way to finish off this group of plushies. I think I can safely say that these plushies are some of the best plushies I've ever owned. Major props to Toyland by Orlova for making these absolute bangers. All custom orders from this shop are actually made available to the public, so if you want to buy these things, you can do that right now. I put a link in the description and I highly recommend supporting this store, they're super talented. Anyways, these plushies are all in a league of their own, and thus I'm gonna break my own scale and rate them an 11 out of 10. Now that we've experienced the absolute pinnacle of Pizza Tower plushies, it's time to go to the exact opposite end of the spectrum and look at some bootlegs. Starting out, we have a brand new bootleg that was created after the Noise update. It's the Doise. This plushie is basically a recolor of that one infamous Noise plushie, with his palette being changed to resemble the blue clothes of the Doise. Honestly, I think the design of this bootleg fits a lot better with the Doise than the Noise. In the game, the Doise is essentially just a bootleg version of the Noise, and I feel like this plushie perfectly encapsulates that energy. His gaping mouth, weird proportions, and downright goofy appearance makes this plushie really feel like the Doise rather than just looking like him. Putting the plush next to the official Noise plushie is even more hilarious. I feel like in the actual Pizza Tower universe, if the Noise and Doise both tried making merchandise of themselves, this is exactly how it would turn out. This plushie is scuffed in the best possible way, so I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. Now that we've seen a Noise plush and a Doise plush, I'd like for you to imagine what a Noisette plush would look like. Got it? Alright, now throw that image into the trash because this is what the plushie actually looks like. What happened here? I have no idea how they managed to mess up a Noisette plush this bad. Right off the bat, this thing somehow feels even cheaper than your average bootleg. They use like 3 different types of fabric and they all feel terrible in their own special way. The stuffing is also very uneven, leading to parts like her head being super heavy while the rest of her body is super light. The design of this plushie is absolutely atrocious, somehow both resembling Noisette and not resembling Noisette at all at the same time. The main problem is her head, as it seems they drew Noisette in Microsoft Paint and then extruded it into a 3D object. There's absolutely no depth and it makes the plushie look dumb as hell. The body looks decent enough, although they only gave her 3 fingers for some reason instead of 4. They also somehow forgot some of Noisette's clothes, with her red shoes being completely missing along with her undergarments. I feel like if the bootleggers had just taken the Noise plushie and added ears to it, it would have turned out a million times better. Instead, we got this absolute dumpster fire of a plush that represents everything wrong with these bootlegs in one neat little pile of shit. 1 out of 10, please get this thing away from me. This next bootleg was so stupid I knew I just had to buy it. It's a Mini John. What do you mean you don't know what that is? So for all you fake fans, this specific enemy only spawns in the escape sequence in John Gutter, where it then will try to run around and punch you in the face. This is probably one of the least notable enemies in the entire game, only showing up in one part of one level, and yet it's still one of the only 2 enemies that ended up getting a bootleg plushie created of them. I just still don't understand what about this guy made the bootleggers choose him over any other enemy in the game. Like, I can think of about a dozen other enemies that would have made amazing plushies, but no, let's just take this obscure enemy that no one cares about and make that a plushie. My best guess as to why they chose this guy is that his design is really simple, basically just being a cube with a face. But you know who else is basically just a cube with a face and would have made an infinitely better plushie? Anyways, rant aside, this plushie's really boring. It's literally just a square with a face on it, and as per usual, any of the charm of the original design is completely gone. The face has been changed from being pissed off to the face that I make when one of my relatives makes a terrible joke and I have to pretend to laugh. The build quality is fine, but like, who really cares? I literally have nothing else to say about this thing, so let's just give it a 5 out of 10 and move on. Where did I put my Peppino plushie? Oh, there it is. Jesus Christ! Okay, so I initially wanted to buy an actual fake Peppino plushie, but all of the ones that I found on Google were just passion projects that weren't being sold. It was then that I had the idea to just buy a bootleg Peppino plush. After all, fake Peppino is basically just a bootleg version of Peppino, so this would essentially be his plushie equivalent. Looking at the plushie now, I definitely think I was right. This plushie is just weirdly unsettling. Unlike some of the other bootlegs that I've seen, there's no major overall design flaws that make this plushie a complete eyesore. However, I have to admit that despite having pretty much the exact same design as the official Peppino plush, the bootleg Peppino plush is somehow extremely scuffed in comparison. It's really the little things in this one that make all of the difference. Peppino's face, which is supposed to be a charmingly goofy grin, has been slightly shifted to now resemble a pained grimace, with his eyes looking in the complete wrong directions. His hat, which on the official plushie has a small seam on the top to flatten it out a little bit, is now round and bulbous, making him look like a salt shaker. This plushie just looks wrong, and considering this bootleg was literally copying an existing plushie, that's pretty embarrassing. I will say though, if we're viewing it through the lens of being a fake Peppino plushie, it actually fits pretty well. Still though, it's really difficult for me to get over how hard they fumbled copying the official design. I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10, do better. Alright, so the final plushie I'm going to talk about in this video is one that I don't actually own. Let me explain. Going as far back as the first plushie video, I wanted to get my hands on a Vigilante plushie. There were two main versions of this particular plushie I saw floating around. The first was this absolutely hilarious looking bootleg with two bulging eyes and a floppy looking hat, and the second was another bootleg, this time resembling a version of Vigilante with arms and legs seen in the title card shown before his fight. Both of these plushies were amazing in their own special ways, and I was dying to obtain at least one of them so I could round out my collection of Pizza Tower boss plushies. However, ever since I started looking, I have not been able to find a single store or website with this plushie in stock. I checked Alibaba, eBay, and even some of the most random and shady websites I could find, but absolutely none of them had either of these bootlegs available for purchase. At this point, I'm not sure either of these things even exist or if they're just figments of my imagination that spawned due to me buying too many Pizza Tower plushies. Anyways, since I'm currently unable to purchase a Vigilante plushie of my own, I figured I'll just review it based on any pictures I can find, since most of these reviews were just based on the plushie's appearance anyways. First up, we have the weird bug-eyed Vigilante. Honestly, I think this guy has the same kind of appeal as the Pepperman plush in the sense that it looks like shit, but in the funniest way possible. Like, this dude looks as though his entire family was just murdered in front of him and he hasn't been able to sleep since. The huge eye bags and big frown further support this theory, and I just can't get over the fact that they gave so many of the other bootlegs eyelids, but when it came to this guy, the bootleggers just gave him the 1,000-yard stare. This plushie is peak stupidity, and I have no choice but to rate it an above average 7 out of 10. The other variant of this plush looks a lot less stupid, but still has several flaws that make it not that ideal. The most obvious of these is the decision to give Vigilante arms and legs. While these are canon parts of his design, with both the arms and legs coming out during certain attacks in his boss fight as well as appearing in his boss portrait, I still feel like they weren't the best addition to this plushie. Even in the fight, these parts are only supposed to be shown briefly as a visual gag, so having them just out like this looks really dumb. As for the other parts of this plushie, the face is definitely an improvement, being a dark scowl that's much more in line with the Vigilante's usual appearance, and the overall shape of the plushie is much more accurate to the game. That being said, I think I actually still prefer the other Vigilante plush. I don't know, something about this one is just boring to me, and the absolute cracked out look of the first plushie is too funny to ignore. I think I'll give this one a 6 out of 10, not quite as enjoyable as the first plush, but still pretty solid. And with that, I've once again reviewed the majority of Pizza Tower plushies that are currently available. Here's the final tier list, including every plushie in this video as well as all the other plushies from the first video for comparison. This video had some of the best plushies yet, but they were definitely offset by some of the most horrific abominations that I've purchased so far. Out of all of these plushies, my favorites were definitely the Toppins, which is why I put them in their own special tier. Honestly, even if Torta Pizza makes official Toppin plushies, I doubt they'll be able to beat these ones in terms of size and quality, although I definitely still buy them. Please make some. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be making another one of these videos since I've pretty much run out of Pizza Tower plushies to talk about, but who knows, maybe I'll end up buying some more custom plushies that I can show off in a part 3. Make sure to let me know in the comments if you want to see more plushie stuff. But anyways, that's the end of the video. Make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!